What is going on, everybody? Chris from the Bass Channel here, and today we are looking at, listening to, and talking about the Alpha-Omega Photon from Darkglass Electronics. Before we get too deep into the myriad of tones that we've got prepared for this video, there's a couple things that I need to cover. First off, all of the sounds that you're going to hear in this video are coming out of the pedal's direct output. No amp, no post-processing like EQ or compression or anything like that has been applied. Second is that all of the playing examples are grouped by bass type. So we've got a bunch of precision bass tones, a bunch of jazz bass tones, Stingray, and then a little bit later we're going to get into some Gibson basses and a handful of various active basses. And finally, Darkglass did send us this pedal specifically for this video. However, they did not provide any type of financial compensation, talking points, or any type of encouragement to say nice things and encourage you to go buy one. So throughout this video, we're going to talk pros, we're going to talk cons, or at least what I think are pros and cons. Again, like everything, your mileage may vary. But with all that out of the way, let's start with a handful of precision bass tones with varying degrees of distortion amounts. Okay, so here's the thing. This pedal does a lot. Like, seriously, a lot. I've got over 20 playing examples throughout the course of this video, so in an attempt to make this come in at under an hour runtime, we're gonna skip all the technical specifications. If that's something that you're interested in and wanna learn more, you can click the link down below, takes you to the Darkglass website, so you can read all the specs straight from the manual. The question that I've encountered the most across the internet is, should I get this or should I get the Atom? And according to me, the short answer is get this. The long answer is, unless you play a dingwall bass and want to sound as over the top as Nolly himself, get this. I think it's probably safe to say that the Alpha-Omega distortion circuit is the most popular distortion circuit in the Darkglass line, seeing as how the Photon is the 7th product to feature the Alpha-Omega circuit. We started with the original Alpha-Omega, followed by the Alpha-Omicron variant, which I'd be curious to see how that pedal's selling in the beginning of 2022, followed by the Alpha-Omega Ultra, We had the 900 watt amp, we had the 500 watt amp, we had the Music Man Dark Ray, which featured the Alpha and Omega circuits, and finally, as of now, we have the Alpha-Omega Photon. This feature-laden pedal is probably good enough to replace your entire rig, as it's got a tuner, a compressor, overdrive, EQ, cab sim, MIDI, headphone in, or headphone out, auxiliary in, DI, you can route a bunch of different, like, this thing does a lot that you can probably get rid of most of your rig in favor of this if you're looking to downsize. If you use a chorus or a flanger, then obviously keep those. But for the most part, most of the utility effects, this kind of takes care of them. So with that, let's hear some more sound samples. Next up, we have a bunch of different jazz bass examples. Again, starting clean and working our way all the way up to insanely over-the-top distortion. So the thing that I like better about the Alpha-Omega Photon over the Atom is that, at least for me, it's much easier to dial in low gain sounds on the Alpha-Omega. Like the high gain stuff is fun, you know, for a little while and whatnot, but really there's little that I like more than a punchy, slightly overdriven bass tone. And again, the Alpha-Omega just has a much easier time dialing that type of tone in. I've always said, you know, when the Atom came out, I love it in theory, I love it on paper, I love it as a concept, but once I got it in my hands, I struggled to make it, you know, sound good to my ears, like what I want to hear. So I think that the Alpha-Omega has all of the cool stuff that the Atom had in theory, with all of the tweakability, features, usability, etc., but with a tone that I think more people will find more usable. So let's get into some Stingray tones. As per usual, we've got varying levels of distortion, we've got different players, and of course, a couple different basses. Okay, so let's talk about the EQ for a minute. I actually have positive and negative things to say about this, but I think more importantly, the positive is that in the Darkglass suite, you can actually change the frequencies of the sliders. Now, I haven't memorized all of them, so I got them queued up right here. But stock, out of the box comes low shelf, 250 hertz, 500 hertz, 1.5 kilohertz, 3 kilohertz, and a high shelf. But once you go in the software, you can actually change that to be 100 hertz, 200 hertz, 400 hertz, 800 hertz, 1.6K, and 3.2K. Now, that doesn't seem like a huge jump, but depending on the levels in which you're tweaking those frequencies, you might find that 100 hertz works better than a low shelf, or you might want to kill 800 hertz, or maybe you might want to boost 400. Whatever it is that you want to do, on paper it doesn't sound like a gigantic jump like 3K to 3.2K, but some of those frequencies in the middle, it's actually really cool. I was able to find different tones in each of those presets that sounded really cool, and I'm just really happy that that's even an option. Now, the negative that I found, which again kind of falls under the your mileage may vary, this might just be a me problem, is while the sliders seem cool as a concept, sometimes I would have trouble adjusting them. Sometimes they'd work exactly as intended. I'd put my finger on it, slide up, slide down, good to go. Other times it seemed like it took a little bit of time to come on. Like, I don't know if I wasn't generating enough heat in my finger. I have no idea what the problem was, but it didn't work perfectly as intended every time for me. Again, your mileage may vary. If you're not dependent on tweaking a particular band on the fly, probably not an issue, but just something I encountered. So now that we've spent some time talking about the EQ, luck would have it that the first couple examples from our Gibson bass section leave the EQ perfectly flat. Now, I did this intentionally because Gibson basses, both as a whole and individually, have a tremendous amount of character to them. And I kind of wanted to show that, the Darkglass Alpha-Omega Photon crazy distortion compressor cab sim pedal does a pretty good job at letting the character of the instrument shine through if you want. Again, you can go nuts with the sliders and really tweak the EQ and crank the gain, and you can make it sound not like the bass, but whatever you want to do. If you want your character to shine through or you want it to just be that sound, it does a pretty good job of both. So like I said, the first two, EQ is flat, Gibson Grabber G3. You can definitely hear that it's two different basses, and then by the end, it's me playing an Epiphone Thunderbird with some extreme settings that at that point don't really let the Thunderbird character shine through. It's just gnarly distortion. So check out, we got a handful of clips, check them out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I love Gibson basses, hopefully you do too. But here's what they sound like through the Alpha-Omega Photon. So if you've made it this far in the video, you've probably noticed that we haven't even touched the cab sim. And I've done this for a couple different reasons. First, the first preset cab sim is my favorite sound. But second, it was just in an attempt to let you hear how each bass reacts to the pedal without over tweaking it arbitrarily. So let's check out what the cab sim does. Here is a previously recorded wiretap of Nick playing his precision bass at a live gig. We're gonna cycle through all the cab sims and let's check it out. Now we're gonna cycle through all of the different distortion settings while Josh plays this green PJ right here. And of course, let's cycle back through all the cab sims so we can hear it with the distortion engaged. You can also save presets to each of the slots, so if you need to change tones between songs or maybe even in the same song, no problem. And finally, let's hear it with a handful of different active basses. So earlier in the video, we touched on the question of should I get this or should I get the Atom? And at least to me, the answer is an obvious get this. But if you're asking the question, should I get this or another Alpha-Omega pedal, whether it be the original, the Omicron, the Ultra, what have you, that's where it gets a little tricky because it's not so easy to say this, and I'll tell you why. First, take a good hard look at your rig. Do you absolutely need all of these features in one box? If the answer is a resounding yes, cool, go for it. If the answer is no, but it would be fun, skip it. Because I have found, personally speaking, in the range of Darkglass pedals, I don't care what circuit it is, B7K, Vintage, Alpha, X, what have you, the bigger the unit gets, the less punchy the tone. So for example, the Alpha Omicron, the B3K, the Vintage microtubes, the ones that are the MXR Phase 90 sized housings, sonically speaking, sound the best. They just have a punch to them where they sound a little bit more, buzzword alert, organic and natural, and really punchy is the best word for it. As the unit gets bigger, getting into the B7K Ultra, the Vintage Ultra, the X Ultra, so on and so forth, they sacrifice a little bit of the punch in the tone in exchange for the features. So if you need the features and you're not that worried about how much punch the pedal's giving off, then cool, go for the bigger ones. If you absolutely need one unit to be your compressor and your EQ and your tuner and your MIDI, then this is a no-brainer. But if you don't necessarily need all of that functionality, then you're better off getting the Alpha-Omega standard with an EQ pedal and a compressor pedal and a tuner pedal and all that sort of thing. Because at the end of the day, let me grab it. You're trying to run this unit and all that it does off of a single 9-volt power supply. Now, I'm not a pedal engineer, not a builder. We'll have to ask Josh from JHS what the deal is. But it would make sense to me that having a dedicated unit for each of those things and its own 9-volt power supply would run more efficiently, I guess, for lack of a better word, where you're trying to split, all of what this does across one power input. I just feel like each thing is going to be a little bit lacking. So again, I would recommend, if you can, get a dedicated distortion pedal, get a dedicated EQ pedal, get a dedicated compressor pedal, and if you need the cab sim and the headphone deal, get the Darkglass Element. I think tonally, it'll just be better all around. I think you'll sound better with a dedicated stomp box per function. Now, again, I understand sometimes for some people, I need convenience more than I need the best possible drive sound or what have you. So at that point, I'm pretty comfortable saying that you could take your bass, put this in the gig bag, and probably tour the world with just this in terms of functionality. Is the tone dramatically worse than the Alpha-Omega? No, of course not. They all sound good. It's just once you get into the audiophile thing that I've kind of developed over making demos about pedals and whatnot, you start to notice those subtle differences. And now that I've heard it, I can't unhear it. And again, like I've said, and we'll probably always say in every video, your mileage may vary. Your experiences may be different than my experiences. We have different instruments. We have different hands, different play styles, attack levels, what we want to hear. It's all different. It's all varying. But I just figure my 2 cents in my experience, I've played almost every pedal in the Darkglass line, and I can unequivocally, without question, tell you that the smaller ones sound the best, sonically speaking. Obviously, the bigger ones do more things, so that is just a trade-off that you're going to have to decide for yourself. Again, it's not a dramatic jump. The Alpha-Omega Ultra doesn't sound dramatically worse than the Omicron. It's just a little bit. It's just a little bit. So again, that's just my 2 cents, my experience, kind of what I've noticed in these pedals. Obviously, the best thing is to get out there and try them yourself and see what works best for you. Now, I understand this isn't necessarily regarded as inexpensive. It comes in a little over $500 as of the beginning of 2022. I totally understand that's not pocket change. However, I mean, if you buy it from somewhere reputable, like we have an affiliate deal with Zounds, so it helps us out. If you get it from Zounds in the link below, But again, if you have somewhere else that you're loyal to, just make sure they have a good return policy. You know, put it on a credit card, or if you have the money saved up and you're gonna spend it on something, there's no harm in trying it, not liking it, and returning it and getting a full refund. So, you know, if you're gonna buy it from somewhere that you know has a good, easy return policy. So again, whether it's Guitar Center, Sweetwater, or again, if you wanna help us out, link below to Zounds, they have this as well. Try it out, see if it's for you, and if it's not, you should have no problem returning it, assuming you don't break it. So with that, I'm gonna jump out of here. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Leave a comment, let me know what you thought, and we will see you next time.